Hello, this is Lisa Russick, and Miss Miriam is stand-in co-host with the podcast We Are All Psychic. And today we have a really great guest. His name is David. And David, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to me.
You are very welcome, and we are so glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Miriam hates that you're here, actually. She hates everything. But yeah, just kidding.
Well, you said we are all psychic, and you're gonna. No, we're not. We're not at all. There would be no conversation.
There would be no conversation, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, David.
Okay.
You looked ahead and saw something. What did you?
Yes.
You guys going to ask you the question? Or do you think we're all psychic?
Well, of course I do, because we're all a collective consciousness. We're all more connected than we realize. I do believe we exist in sort of this human-created matrix of consciousness that separates us from our abilities quite a bit.
Yeah.
We don't have to be there, but we are sort of indoctrinated and swept up in that. And there's just a lot of cultural things and religious things and stuff like that that sort of lead us away from that. But I do think we're finding our way back to it.
I think so.
And we absolutely communicate without words all the time. And some people are certainly more adept at that than others, but I do believe we're all psychic. Yes.
Thank you. And what got you there? What made you think that way? Have you been around it, or like when you were younger or anything?
Well, I think when you're really young, it's really apparent how you sort of read people naturally and you tap into things, and kids are saying, odd things all the time that, adults don't necessarily understand. They're sort of living in that energetic realm more. And then again, they go to school, they go to Sunday school, they do, whatever pulls them out of that. That's not real. Don't listen to that. That's bad. Read this, do this, be this is what our collective humanity matrix tells us that we're supposed to do. And it sort of separates us. I had the great gift as a child, though, of having very unattached parents.
Yeah.
I didn't have my father and mother were having trouble in their relationship at the time that I was born. By the time I was 6, my father left. My mother fought for custody to get back at my father and then didn't want to be involved in my life, really.
God,
so I was left to my own devices.
Right?
Yeah, but that was a good thing for me. It was a rough childhood for sure. But for me, this inner voice that I have that is source energy, that's what I channel today. So instead of tuning into other people, the way somebody who might be a psychic medium, and I have lots of friends that are psychic mediums, instead of developing that skill, if you will, I developed the going inward skill.
Okay.
And that's really what I share more than anything else.
Ooh, I want to hear about that. Tell us about, because I do mediumship too. And I've channeled for the first time probably about a month ago or 2 months ago. And it just kind of happened organically during a session with some of the client. But how do you, because for me, I don't like tune in to say you to get spirits or Miriam to get spirits. I would ask, they would just kind of be here and I'd ask you what the person looks like. And then I look for them,
Yeah.
and if they're here, they usually are, they'll pop out, but I've never heard that, like tuning into the source energy of within me to get that information. So that's kind of like tapping into the Akashic records I have access to within, I guess, is in a way, is what you're saying. Or if
you think about it as source is sort of the entire energetic realm, all that is universe, that's source energy. That's all of it.
Yeah.
And then we are all expressions of that. Yeah. Every being, every soul is sort of a strand of consciousness of that. And so that is sort of the connective energy that connects us to all of that. So whether you're reading a person or you're channeling, someone who is not in physical, source is sort of the conduit for all of that.
Okay.
And so what I focus on in my channeling is let's get all of the ego, because the beings are all sort of connected to an ego, right? Or a human type consciousness. Yeah. I clear all that out of the way. And my intention is to get to what is source, and let me share what source is, because that's just what I do. And so you're just tapping into something that's a little different, but it's still source. And that's what connects all of us.
It is.
And not necessarily in physical, right?
It really feels like to me, I do think everything is connected. And I had my very first aura photography. I've had a few of them, but the first one had white, and they explained that that's usually someone who thinks everybody's connected to everybody, who has the white. And the next one I had orange. And but the white wasn't showing that time because I was on a date. I guess I didn't want him to see my white. I wasn't having white pure thoughts or something. I don't know. For a lot of doubt.
To keep that secret, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, but I really do. I felt that way since I was probably in my 20s. Like it feels like it's connecting up here, like through the chakra, maybe because we have these words and terms to describe what we experience. But I do think you're right. I'm not. I feel like I'm not really tuning into myself. I'm tuning into what I think is there or what is there for me. The energy it forms into whatever I'm thinking about. Person. It's really interesting to think about, like going to the source. Where what does that feel like to you? What is that like? What is that experience like for you to go within to find that stuff?
Well, all of that, it's been just sort of like in the beginning from childhood up until early 40s. It was just knowledge or awareness sort of dropping in.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I would just know things. I would understand what made people tick. I would understand people on a different level, even as a kid. And it was just like this sort of this knowledge. And then I started looking for more of it and it started expanding. And there was a lot more. I realized there was a lot more there that I just wasn't paying attention to. I was ignoring it. It's all there. I was just ignoring it.
Or not
So
noticing, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And really refocusing, especially when I got into late teens, into my adult years, focusing on more of what I would call 3D stuff, figuring out how to be an adult, how to make money, how to, take care of myself, all of that sort of thing. So you sort of ignore all of that, but I always knew there was something else. So I would go see a lot of psychics. I have been the client of multiple psychics throughout the years. And I've had some amazing experiences. And I saw this psychic in Casadega, Florida. I don't know if you've heard of Casadega. Casadega is a very cool place that you should visit because it's a psychic encampment and it's small. It's not commercialized like Sedona. I love Sedona too, but it's just
Kind of
not
like a
like that.
commune or something. I'll go live there.
It's just that, yeah, well, it's a tiny little place. And from what I understand, you have to sort of prove that you're the real deal to get in and actually be in the camp.
Huh.
But it's this quaint little village in Florida. It's between Orlando and Daytona. It's in the middle of nowhere, really.
Interesting.
And I lived in Orlando at the time, and I was going to all these psychics, and somebody said, "Oh, you've got to go see Hazel in the Pink House in Casadega. She's the best psychic they'd ever seen." So I made an appointment to see this woman. And leading up to this, I had this recurring dream of like walking around a corner, like in a little country town, kind of like where I grew up. And then all of a sudden I come upon this white church with a pond next to it. And I've had that dream over and over again for years. And sometimes church would be in session. There'd be cars everywhere. Other times there would be nobody in sight. It would just be the church. But I had that happen over and over again. Well, I went to see Hazel. I made the appointment. I got there early and she wasn't ready for me yet. So I walked around the town. I rounded the corner and there's the church in Casadega. And it already felt like I was in a very special place. The energy there is just, it's so it just feels good and peaceful and very different than other places. But that just solidified it to me. And I think that really raised my vibration and opened me up to the experience, because when I saw Hazel, she was the one that told me that was a channel. And I didn't even know what the hell that was. I'm like, what's a channel? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then she told me, and then it really freaked me out. I really judged it, and all of that. But the rest of that psychic experience was great because she told me about things that were all true, that she had no way of knowing. This was kind of early internet, before social media, certainly. And I don't think she had a computer in her house, much less the skills to like
need one.
Right.
Really.
So, she wasn't, going and finding information. She didn't know anything about me until I showed up. And then she told me so many things that were true, even things that didn't make sense at the time, in a short time fell into place for me after that experience. So that was a big life-changing experience. So shortly after that, I started meditating. And then I had this Kundalini awakening in my meditation. Since then, it electrified me is the best way to describe it. It started at the base of my spine and just electrified.
I've had that happen to me before too.
It's like an energy awakening in your body, right? It's just.
It just felt like the whole bottom of me, not my feet, just got ripped out all of a sudden. And then I went, woo! It just felt really weird. It felt like something just got ripped open, is what it felt like to me. And it shot all the way up. The energy, I guess something felt like it shot through me.
Do you still feel the energy?
Yeah, I guess I do. But
I say that it electrified me and the energy's never left. It's still very present. I'm very, I'm fidgety. Like you'll see me like scratching and fidgeting a lot because that energy is just on, especially when I'm channeling or in a high vibe, situation where the stream is very present. Your body just has to adjust to all of that. You've got your human energy, but then you've got the universe flowing through you. Your body has to adjust to that. And it can really wreak havoc on your body as well, as it did mine.
I had a psychotic break like a year later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
mine
mean,
was more physical. I had a lot of lower back problems. I have a
yeah,
fused spine now as a result of all the back problems. And I
yeah,
know it's all of that energy because I have a back problem that you're only supposed to really receive like in a car accident. And I've never been in a major car accident. The doctors are like, how did this just happen to your spine? You've never been in a car accident? Nope. But it's the energy. But it's really, to me, it's more of the disallowing of the energy than the allowing of the energy. It's the
yeah. I bet you're right. I bet you're right.
holding it away, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. See,
Which
when I
is your psychotic break was that as well. It was
yeah, well,
your
my
ego wrestling with everything that you were knowing to be true.
I know that antipsychotics, I've told a lot of people, I talk about this on the podcast. I don't take antipsychotics anymore, but they separated um, the hallucination delusion kind of thinking and the psychic experience or the energetic information. And the medicine actually did that for me. Just one kind did that. A couple of kinds can, but when before I was treated with that type, I was just and I was not happy about it. And then when I had that, I could really tell the difference, and it made a huge like. I felt so much better about life when I could tell the difference between those two because I wasn't really sure if I was psychic or not because I wouldn't know things correctly, but sometimes I would. Sometimes I'd have these great big stories and they can't possibly be true, and
Yeah.
I know that, so I just kind
Well,
of
and people who are skeptical of psychics always want it to be black and white. Tell me
Yes.
what I ate for lunch yesterday, and why don't you know this, and why don't you know
Yes.
that, and it's energy, and just think of how much is out there
yeah,
that we're allowing to come through. The fact that we get a few things right or a few things come to be, or it's just amazing to me.
it is.
And as far as I'm concerned, if someone's a skeptic, be a skeptic. I don't care whether you're into what I do or not. If you are, you are. If you're not, you're not. Move
I
on.
am.
But it's always interesting to me that people don't really understand what this is, and people
But they hate it
ridicule.
anyway or something. They don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
they want to ridicule things they don't understand because they can't grasp it, so they have to make
Yeah.
fun of it and make it something silly so that they don't feel stupid. But once they really get into it and allow themselves to start dabbling in it, they realize that it's not this, there's a reason I think that the matrix guides us away from it because there's so much knowledge, truth, and power in it that it's makes us non-compliant beings.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that oh, I wanted to say this, listeners and watchers. This is a video on Spotify, but Miriam and listeners and watchers, before we got on the podcast, David told me he's also from the South. And if you're a regular listener, you will know that about the South from a psychic's point of view. And so we really talked about that and how different in that small town kind of like getting in that background of a small town Southern psychic. I hear you talking like you're talking to those Southern people. All those people can just that's why I feel sometimes like, why don't you just stop judging and go live your life? It's like I felt like in the South, and I got picked on a lot for it in Alabama. But like Miriam lives where you're in Idaho, and you're in a small town too, right? Don't they kind of people all know what you do though, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not all of them. I think that the people that do know have kept it pretty tight-lipped. What I'm doing, like the rest of everybody else thinks I'm just either teaching at home or doing life coaching at home is what I tell the ultra religious types.
Yeah, I hear you. It's weird. We have to cover this up, and I recently had an experience where I told a doctor here in Tennessee, I've been telling my doctors. In Alabama, I wouldn't do that, but in Tennessee, I was like, well, try it. I mean, I could tell my therapists, and I mean, I'm sure they hear plenty of stuff, and they didn't get judged. I never got judged by a therapist for that. But I got some medical trauma triggered from that experience, telling them I work as a psychic and then just being attacked in Nashville. And I was like, wow. And it really set me through a spiral, because of being told all my life, it's not real. It's not, having delusions. You're having hallucinations and trusting these people telling me the truth. But they didn't know either, because they chose not to, or it never was something they wanted to explore. Maybe.
Yeah, I do a lot of teaching about the matrix and what it is, and again, it's collective, the collective consciousness of humanity developed by humanity.
About it, tell us more.
And religion is part of the matrix. Government, nations, all of this stuff. There's a lot of good things about the matrix. The matrix gives us technology, the ability to do what we're doing right now is part of that. But the limiting part of the matrix is sort of that. This is what you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. and you need to just fall in and live this life that we've told you you're supposed to live. And that never worked for me. It didn't work for me as a kid. I didn't do well in school. I was dyslexic.
Yeah.
I never felt like I fit in there. I'm also gay, which in the South is big taboo. You're going to burn in hell for that. You can't do that. So you have to keep yourself very, very contained, because you're a threat to their belief system. I talk about belief systems a lot. So if they have a belief system that, there's God and there's Jesus and everyone needs to be a God-fearing Christian, in this case of this, there's lots of other religions, obviously. And, one man, one woman, you're supposed to get together, have a family, basically be consumers of life and then depart and reproduce and all of this sort of thing.
Yes.
That's all the matrix. And so the harmful part of the matrix is that part that wants to label anyone wrong or bad or evil that isn't part of that, or even in the medical field where you're labeled with some sort of disorder if you're not fitting into the matrix. So there are people that are off on other, planes that are labeled insane and treated, and maybe they don't want to be. Maybe they do. That's okay. It's maybe they want to be more grounded in the matrix.
I was seeking treatment for years and couldn't get the right treatment until I did.
Yeah.
I had to stand up for it, though. I had to fight for it. I had to tell the doctors this isn't working. I had one doctor when I got put on the right antipsychotic, he threw all his books off his desk. Yes, he had a lot of books. And because I said, this isn't working anymore. I was like, do something. He's like, I guess psychiatrists are crazy. He threw all his books off his table. I mean, in one swoop, he's, what do you want me to do? Rewrite your medical plan? I was like, I don't know. You're the doctor. It was so dramatic. But he did get me on my first antipsychotic that worked. I guess it worked because I stood up for myself. At that time I did anyway. I didn't tell him I was a psychic. Obviously, he was a good doctor. And I did actually, I ended up calling him probably about 10 years later and thanking him. He didn't know who I was, but because, but he was like a state doctor and I didn't have insurance until Obamacare came along. Yay. So that was a good thing for me as someone who has a lot of illnesses all my life. I do have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a collagen disorder. And that's probably what's been wrong physically, but it was never diagnosed correctly until a few years ago. And it causes a lot of pain and scoliosis and all this stuff, all kinds of problems. But it has made me wonder, though, because I've met, it's supposed to be a rare disorder, but I've met a lot of people in this field with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or just another form of EDS. And it's a connective tissue disorder. It kind of makes me wonder if it has people, like my Reiki teacher had it. And I was like, wow, and from then on, I just started finding people. I try to, whenever I meet someone in the field and I look young, usually because it keeps you looking young, I'll ask them, do you have hypermobility and stuff? Do you have any of these symptoms? I was curious, have you hurt? Most of them, have said, what are you talking about? But I would say there's too many that say, yes, I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's just really strange, that there's so many people in the field with it. So I do think we're all like connected. I think that some people's, their bodies maybe can just like see stuff better or understand that there's the energy better, feel the energy itself. The actual bodies can be different maybe. And maybe because this is a recessive trait that I have. It's a genetic recessive trait. So supposedly both parents have to have it, but it can just be a mutation. So there's, I don't know, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but do you think there's something like that? Do you think like that some people just have like a natural proclivity to the energy for some reason?
Well, I think when you find out you have something and now it's kind of you're vibing it, you're really focused. Just like if you decide you want a new blue car of some sort, suddenly you're seeing a lot more blue cars and you're seeing that kind of car. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. They were probably always there, but they're sort of stepping forward for you because that's your vibe now.
Maybe.
So you can vibe with anything and you tune into that thing and you, especially in appreciation. I talk about source energy a lot being appreciation of all things. So if you're really appreciating something, you're going to start seeing a lot more of it just show up in your experience because you are creating your reality through your consciousness. So your consciousness is shifted to focusing on that. So you're going to see more people that you're vibing with that have the same thing. It makes sense.
And it has been a big focus for me for a few years because I just literally got the diagnosis and been living with it for almost 50 years and never knew, And I was just like, It is a focus because I'm like, wow, that's what it is. I just was kind of surprising. I'm kind of exploring I like health stuff though too. And I like to try to find relations between things going on in our body and the psychic or energetic perception.
Yeah, well, your consciousness creates the physical vehicle, so obviously those two go hand in hand. And understanding better why you're creating something that you may not want to experience forever can help you heal it.
Yeah. How so? Wait, go a little deep. I'd love to hear more about that.
Getting into the root cause of something and healing the root cause will clear up whatever's going on.
Some people have told me to send energy to my cellular genetic DNA level and try to ask it. I don't know. I don't know. Is that something I want to do? It hurts a lot, but is that the reason I can? Yeah, I am who I am. I don't know if I want to change it. It's kind of like
I would say that whatever you've experienced in your life that's brought you along to here, and a lot of times we connect more with the energetic realm because of adverse conditions. I don't know anyone that's into all of this stuff that just had an easy, perfect life.
You're right. Yeah.
There's no reason to just go explore the energetic realm if you're so in the matrix and you're doing what the matrix tells you you're supposed to. And there's nothing wrong with that. My brother is very in the matrix. He's lived his whole life exactly the way society tells him he's supposed to live. And I think he's a happy guy. So there's nothing wrong with that, but he would never get into stuff like this. He would never be into any of this. He's also very religious. But, those of us that have had adversity in our lives, we don't fit into the matrix so well. So if you're going to be out, kind of like we were joking about going to hell, you might as well have fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like if you're not going to fit into the matrix, what else is outside of it for me?
Yes.
So let me go to the metaphysical bookstore. Let me explore psychic phenomena. Let me talk about this stuff because I'm already considered not part of the matrix. If they don't want me, then what's out here? And then those of us that kind of operate outside the matrix, at least some of the time, it's a pretty damn cool place.
It is
far more interesting than the Matrix is.
Yeah,
all the
fear
and judgment and comparison and all that stuff. I'd much rather be out here.
It's boring when you can talk to like the spirit of Elliott Smith. I think I'd rather do that.
Yeah, weird people are far more interesting to me than non-weird people. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. Speaking of weird people, Miriam, would you like to ask David any questions? You gave me that perfectly. Thank you.
Gosh, you guys have touched on so many different things that I'm kind of like, I had so much blood. They took so much blood out of me today.
Call the doctor. She got 17 vials of her blood.
Like a page and a half of like blood tests. I'm like, where am I? Yeah, I guess like, I don't really have a question. I'm just like, I'm having fun just listening to what you guys are saying. Like, I relate a lot to what you were talking about with like the, starting at the base of your spine and feeling things go up. I've over the last few years have had like experiences with trying to feel my chakras, and trying to heal them and just being able to feel that they're there. And so when I was working on that, like, this might be TMI, but when I was working on that energy that you guys were talking about that would like go up or down, would go up and down through those chakra areas. But like the way that it started with me was like through like sexuality.
Right.
And so like you can actually like orgasm from like your heart chakra.
Yes, you can.
That kind of thing. And so that's sort of what you were talking about with that energy.
And now it's a sex magic podcast.
Yes.
But that's true. Your chakra, you can operate a lot of other things in your body.
Yeah.
And coordinate your chakras. You're right. I've been working on that too, Miriam, getting the chakras like I just go up. I don't go back down.
Yeah, well, our whole body is a receptor to the energetic realm, right? So it doesn't necessarily. I have done chakra healing and meditations where I absolutely feel it where I'm supposed to feel it because of the binaural beats, activates.
Yeah.
I think that's a very cool experience. But for me, the weirdest thing to me, I used to use a pendulum for yes and no, and I get very clear yes and no guidance on my pendulum. Now your pendulum is reading your own vibration, but if you have an intention of your highest vibration coming through, you are connecting to the universe with a pendulum.
Yes.
So I learned that at some point I didn't need the pendulum anymore. My whole body is that, and I get very clear guidance that starts very often in my left knee. of all places.
Really?
My left side of my body is the positive side. It's where when I used to channel, I would feel the stream sort of enter my body.
On the
And
left
I
side?
think now that was something I was kind of creating for myself, because now I feel like it's just always there and I'm always, part of it. But it would come in the left side. So that's my positive. That's like the yes side. And when the pendulum swings, it swings, to the left
Okay.
for yes.
Okay.
And the no side is to the right. And it's amazing how this energy can start in my knees and sort of work up.
Oh,
You would
cool.
think it would start, in the mind or in the heart or something like that. And instead, I'm like getting it. It's like felt first in my knees, sometimes to the point where it jerks me. I like jerk like that.
Knee-jerk reaction. I wonder if that's where that comes from. Like, yeah, I have it. Like I do the yes and no. I kind of feel it like around my solar plexus, and it goes up for yes. I don't know what it is. It's the energy, I guess. It goes up. I don't know how else to describe it. The feeling goes up for yes and down for no. And then everything bad comes out my left side. Like if I'm doing energy work or someone's doing energy work on me, it usually comes out my left side. If it's like coming out. And if stuff's coming in, it usually comes in like this way. I can't explain it. I don't know why, but it comes in from the right. So it's kind of a little different than you.
Yeah, I found that we're all, we receive differently. I think we're all receiving sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
But we all just develop ways of receiving it differently. And again, we're all sort of going back to how we were originally before we created this matrix of beliefs that sort of separate us from all of this. We're coming back around to it now.
And it separates us from each other, really.
Indeed, it does. Yeah.
It separates society.
Stifles us. It stifles our abilities to help each other and become what we were meant to become.
I think you're right, too. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, I am always about, let's go back to appreciation of everything, which is source energy is appreciation of all things. Appreciating the matrix, it's sort of like we decided as a species that we wanted to have shelter and farming and, share food and exchange things and create ultimately education, books, language, technology, all the things that we've created. That took some structure, and the structure is what created the matrix. And it went as far as it needed to go. And now we just don't need it anymore.
You're right.
We're moving into an era where we don't need worker bees to build the buildings anymore. Computers can do that for us. So we're sort of breaking that old system. And in doing that, more and more of us are exiting the matrix saying, hey, I'm an abundant being. I can live and have and be and do the things that I want to do without clocking into a job every day.
Yeah.
I do that. I've proven that to myself a long time ago. So the more of us that are figuring that out, we're not going to have the worker bees anymore, but we don't need to be worker bees anymore. We have created technology that can do, AI can do surgery. AI can, print a house
than a surgeon.
more efficiently than we do.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very exciting time to be a human being.
I love AI.
Very exciting time.
AI. I love everything about it. I think it's an exciting time to live in. And I've thought that for a long time since the internet. Since I first got on the internet in 1993, and I was chatting with my friend Kyla, who was going to Vanderbilt, and I was in Auburn. She was my best friend in high school. And, there was like a split screen, black and white, split white screen, it's split in half. Letters come up as she types, and they go backspace.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the technology back then. It's so funny. It's so archaic now, but back then it was the coolest thing, right? Like I'm online chatting with somebody across the country.
For this, and I'm talking to her in Tennessee. Yeah. For all you people who don't know, it used to cost a lot of money to call people long distance.
Yes.
My phone bill was always whenever
AOL was just something. Remember, AOL was the whole world. Before social media, AOL was just everything.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, David, the stream of David, it says on your name. What does that stand for? What's that about?
So when I started channeling, I don't know if you're into channeling or other channelers.
Yes.
Other channelers, we have Abraham, we have Seth, we have Joseph, we have all these different male entities that are channeled. And when I wanted to sort of come out of the closet and start channeling on which I started on my podcast publicly, I said, okay, if I'm going to share you, who are you? And they're like, well, we're not really a who. You think we're a who, but maybe that helps you, form an idea of what we are. But we're not former humans. We're not entities on other planets. And I don't even know what the words were. It was sort of like we're everything, and that's what I call source now.
Okay.
And in the beginning, I wouldn't say I was channeling source. I was freaked out by that because I thought people were going to think I'm saying that I'm speaking God and that's
Yeah,
going to freak people out. I had to work through a few years of my own judgment about that to come around to, hey, we all channel source in our own way. That's all I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I said, who are you? What's your name? We don't have a name. You can, give us a name. We're not he or she. We're not gendered. We're not even a we. This is an energy that you're getting. So I just said, this is my stream of consciousness. So it's the stream of David. And it just stuck. It just sounds kind of cool. People like it.
It's a nice look.
It's what stuck. Yeah. So the podcast is still the stream of David. So that's where I started channeling. And if you want to hear me channel for the first time ever, go back to 2017 publicly. It's the first time I ever channeled other than into my own iPhone recorder for anybody else was on my podcast.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. So that's really like doing that. That's putting yourself out there very vulnerably. And I appreciate you for that. Thank you.
I was really guided to do that. And I was in a very high paying corporate job at the time where, I'm sitting around a boardroom with, in a publicly held company and you've got a podcast and what are you doing? And what's this crazy stuff that you do? And so I just kind of did it. And before very long, I just said, I'm just going to quit my job. Yeah. I'm going to leave this behind. I don't need this anymore. I'm going to create my own abundance. And I had a mid 6-figure lifestyle, and the lifestyle has never left.
That's great.
Since 2017.
That's great.
Yeah. It just shows up for me because my beliefs support it. I have a belief that I live a certain way. And even when the money isn't flowing, because I don't have a paycheck anymore, so the money ebbs and flows when you're self-employed.
Yes.
The lifestyle is just consistent. I always say that, I've gotten down to my last dime, but my dog still eats the best dog food.
We talked about that before. That money just kind of shows up when we need it.
It shows up. Things show up when we need it. They really just show up for us. And wherever your belief is about what your life is, the universe is going to show up to support that. So if like a lot of people look at my life and say it was extravagant, I look at other people's and say that's far more extravagant than mine, but that's just a judgment. It's just what I was used to.
Yeah.
That's all. That's what I was used to. So it became my belief. And then I found that the universe just supports it one way or the other. So if you want to click your lifestyle up, you have to click your beliefs up and your worthiness of it. And then your lifestyle the universe is just going to catch up to it.
So many of us are taught like you only fit in this box and you're not worth this and you're not worth that. They don't say it maybe with words, but they imply it with their actions or their condescensions.
But speaking of other people, can they affect, when the doubters and the haters, when they sit behind you and they say, oh, she's reading tarot and she's never going to amount to anything, that kind of deal. Can that affect a person if they don't hear it? Does that affect vibration? I always wonder about that.
I think your beliefs trump. I'm sorry.
You're right. I'm sorry. I blab all the time.
Your beliefs trump everything. So if you have enough, if there's enough static in your belief, like you're so wavering, like on some days you feel really good about doing that. And other days you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should just get a regular job and not do this anymore. And that's not unusual to be like that because we're kind of moving up and down vibrationally all the time. I think if you have a little static in your vibration, that can impact you because you've got people sending you some negative energy about it. But you can fight that off by continuing to raise your vibration, your belief, and your worthiness to where you're just impenetrable about that. I had to do that too. Those first few years that I came out as a channel, when I was saying I'm channeling non-physical entities, because I kind of ripped that off from Abraham. That's what Abraham used to say if you're into Abraham Hicks. And I came around. It took me a little time to say, I channel source consciousness and this is what it is. I'm putting it out there. You can be into it or not. If you think I'm crazy, it doesn't matter to me. You just have to get into that unbothered space. And then you can take that and apply that to every subject in life, ultimately.
I agree.
Unbothered is a great way to be. I can tell you that.
Unbothered is, and I'm unbothered about most things except like really personal issues I haven't sorted out for myself. But I didn't used to be. I used to be very sensitive to everything, and everything was my fault somehow. Very hard on myself when I was younger, in my teens and 20s. But I wasn't so much that. I was trying to fit into the matrix, but I didn't, no matter how hard I tried. I wanted it
so bad.
I wanted to be in there. And then when it wasn't going to work for me, I started looking elsewhere and really exploring, why is this happening? And who am I? And who are they? And why should I listen to them? Stuff like that first occurred to me. But then I just kind of, once I got into my 30s, and I'm still dealing with it, stuff, life, it's always going on. But into my 30s and into my 40s, I just started feeling more balanced about who I am and not really caring as much about people doubting or judging me. But I love talking about it on the podcast because it was a big part of my identity, in my 20s and 30s, moving into the energy work, because I did not feel like I should,
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, just wait till you get into your 50s. You're really unbothered in your 50s. And that happens, I think, somewhat naturally. But for those of us doing this kind of work, it really comes on in your 50s. You really just.
I got another Saturn return coming up, and I know that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
First one was when I had my psychotic break, quit working in the world. That's actually, if watchers, if you don't know what the Saturn return is in astrology, it's when Saturn comes back to your place in your birth chart, and it's usually about 29, and everything goes, hey, Saturn energy says, hey, guy, you're going to go through hell because you aren't where you're supposed to be, or something like that. we're gonna measure up to what you said you'd do before you came here and where you are. It's kind of.
But all of that stuff ultimately levels you up.
It does.
Anything that you move through that's a challenge in life levels you up as spiritually, absolutely, but also as a human being if you allow it to.
Yeah.
If you continue to judge it as something that was terrible and shouldn't have happened and all of that, then you might stay in that lower vibrational space. But if you kind of say, I moved through that experience, not only did I survive it, I experienced it in a very high vibrational way that ended up being a very cool thing for me.
That's a great attitude to have right there. And I'm going to try to start adopting that more. Where can listeners find you, David? Other than
the Stream of David, we're the Stream of David everywhere. The streamofdavid.com, the podcast, all social media and things like that. And I channel the stream. And then what we've done is we've created a practical application of their teachings called Taya, TYA. And that's the book is the TYA, the Taya practice. So that's a good place. And it's a nice, big, thick book with lots of stuff. It's not just a little pamphlet.
Nice.
It's a real, it's a whole operating system for your life if you want to adopt it. And really, it's stripping away the matrix and operating your life more in harmony with universal law. That's what it's all about.
Okay. And where can you buy that book? Just on your website or Amazon?
Amazon. The website takes you to all of our stuff. Absolutely. But the book is exclusively on Amazon. I have an audiobook also. Okay.
Listeners and watchers, I'll put his information that he wants in the description. And I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Everclear. Everclear is an advice app and website where you can get advice from psychics and empaths so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And Miriam and I are both advisors on Everclear. I am Lisa P, LLESAP, and you are Miriam M? C. C. I always forget that. I don't know why I think Miriam M. I think it's because Donna is Marie M. And I always think you're... because she's made the joke that there's a Miriam now and she's Marie M. That's so funny. Anyway, I guess in summary, I want to ask you to give advice for our listeners. Let's say maybe someone's listening to this podcast and they're like, what's this matrix? What's this, what is it bad that I'm in the matrix? And they're kind of wondering if that's a bad thing. Is that a bad thing? Can you give them advice as how to clear out judgments from the
I would say that we are all in the matrix to some extent. We're all indoctrinated into it. And I always, the best of the matrix is things like traffic laws. I'm glad that when I get in my car and leave my house, that there's a light and most people are going to stop. And that's part of the matrix. That's not bad. So the matrix is not all bad. The elements of the matrix that have been sort of overdeveloped is the fear, judgment, comparison stuff that tells you what you're supposed to be and all of that. You can detune that stuff in your life. And what happens when you detune those things, you're just a happier person. You're a happier person. Your vibration is higher. When your vibration is higher, life just goes better. It solves ultimately anything in there. It doesn't make your life perfect. Don't think for a moment we're here for perfection, but you're just a happier, less bothered, less stressed out, less anxiety being when you're operating in a higher vibration. So that's what I would want to share with anyone and everyone is to, allow your vibration to just naturally raise as you detune those elements that you just don't want in your life anymore.
How would you put that, to someone who maybe you're really smart, David. You use big words, big concepts, but maybe something like someone who's never heard of or seen the movie The Matrix or doesn't know what that refers to, like indoctrination. Maybe they don't know that people, they don't feel that way. People are telling them what to do, but they're kind of suspicious that they're being told how to be and act and do by their culture, and they're feeling that influence, but they're still unsure of themselves. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Can you give advice for people to embrace their authentic selves so that they don't worry about all this stuff so much anymore?
I think at the end of the day, if you believe a core foundational belief that you're an eternal being, that you have a soul, that you're more than just this lifetime, I think that really changes everything for any of us. If you think this life is all that is, then you're going to put a lot of pressure on it. And it's going to be a rocky path because you're thinking, well, gosh, I live and I die, and what happens in between? And I feel out of control. I don't have enough money, or my health is bad, or I'm stuck living in a town or a place that I don't want to be stuck in, or a relationship. We're never really stuck. We have the freedom to change and be and do and have anything that we want, but don't jump from where you are to I'm going to have a yacht and a Lamborghini and I'm going to be a billionaire. That's all matrix crap. I have manifested. I went from being very poor as a kid to manifesting a very high income as an adult, and got all the money and the stuff that I thought looked rich, and I was still unhappy. And that's why I realized the stuff is fine. It's nice, but there's a big something missing from my life that a big house and fancy cars and all that is just never going to replace. And it really is just that appreciation piece that I talk about a lot. That's just joy in being. The little things in life, the
Gratitude.
Puppies and kittens and flowers and blue skies. And, we were talking about rain before. I love a thunderstorm. I don't ever get them because I live in the desert. Just the things that we love about life that don't cost a dime. We really do love those things. We've just been taught in the matrix it's not valuable unless there's a price tag on it and someone's willing to pay for it. Again, just recognizing what's the matrix and what's not the matrix is huge. And it doesn't cost you a dime to start exploring that in your mind. Just, okay, consumerism is matrix. Nature is not. My job, employment, taxes, credit score, marital status, that's all matrix. That's all human created stuff. Let's put the human created stuff in one category and the nature stuff in another. And what's more natural for me? What's going to get me back to that sort of natural way of being with still having some of the stuff. We don't have to go live in the woods or anything. It's just mentally being able to separate those things and recognize them for what they are, and then allowing that matrix tug to just tug at you less and less and less, because you're starting to appreciate the other stuff more. And then you realize that it's a human superpower to not care about what the matrix is telling you to be, do, or have.
Superpower.
Yeah, to not care.
Yeah. To care about it, but not about how it's judging you, making you.
Like you can be there, I can be part of you, but I don't have to give you power. Exactly. I don't have to give power to politics or the economy or my job. I can exist in it if I need to, but I don't have to give it all my power. I'm going to start putting my power over here.
Yeah, or who you or who Miriam is and stuff like that. That's great. I love that advice. Thank you so much. And I guess lastly, I'll wrap it up. Miriam, you got any last minute thoughts for David and me?
That is just, I almost feel like I got invited to be on this just so I could hear this information, because so much of it is hitting me personally of
me too.
I'm doing that. I'm doing that.
Me too. Me too. I'm like, oh, I am doing that, but I'm not
right. No, but it's it makes me feel hopeful, because it's I'm doing that, but then there's a solution. All I have to do is, it's just more reinforcement of the idea of manifestation and how it can work for everyone, and so being able to see somebody just kind of point out, the things that you do kind of lock yourself into the matrix. A big epiphany that I had when he was talking was that, we were talking about, we wanted that so bad. I wanted that beaver cleaver life, and I wanted to be Nomo. I never got it.
Normo. Yeah, so her first podcast was called Normo. And it's at the end, she's like, I want to be Normo.
I remember that feeling. I remember looking in envy at all the other kids. They all had the stuff that I wanted. And I thought that was happy.
Yep.
And maybe at that time for them it was. Yeah. But then I got all the stuff and realized, okay, I'm still not happy, even though I have all this stuff. I was never meant to have all this, and have it be all that to me in the first place.
Right. That's really excellent. Thank you so much, David, for coming on our show. And Miriam, thank you for co-hosting.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
And listeners and watchers, I love you. And Miriam, I'm telling him, Miriam loves you. And David, you love the listener.
I love all humanity the way Source does. So I get it.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
He loves the listeners. That's what he's saying. And thank you everybody for watching and listening. I love you too. And everybody have a wonderful time wherever you may be. And peace out. Bye.